Hello everybody and welcome or welcome back to another Recent Reads on Sunday on this sweltering hot day in Cologne. I am already sweating and I haven't even started filming yet, so this is going to be fun. Anyway, let's talk about the books that I finished and that I'm currently reading. I finished 3 books since we last talked. And a lot of them were buddy reads, which is also an indication of my reading mood, that when it's so warm and when I'm really, really busy at work and it's not fun busy, this combination mostly means that I'm too lazy to read and that I'm just, binging Netflix or something. And thank God for buddy reads, because I wouldn't say force me, certainly not, but they push me a little bit, and that's good. So anyway, the first book was a buddy read with Terri from Miss Terri Reads, and we read Tana French's The Witch Elm, published in 2018. If you follow my channel, you know that Terri and I are making our way through Tana French's work. We previously did the same thing with Louise Erdrich's work, which took us much longer because Tana French hasn't written that many novels yet. We have one more to go for Terri, that is The Searcher. I have read that already, but I will reread it together with her. But anyway, so this is one of her standalone novels, so it's not part of the Dublin Murder Squad series, as, by the way, is The Searcher. It's also standalone. And this is set, or the story is, the main character is not a detective, even though 2 detectives play a pivotal role in the book. But the main character is Toby, who works in an art gallery, and then shit happens. And I mean, really, right in the first 20 or 30 pages. And he moves to his uncle's house. His uncle is sick also, so that's one reason, but also Toby needs some time off. I'm not going to go into why. And then there is a body discovered in the garden of that house, and the plot takes off from there. The body is old. It's a skeleton more than a body. So it's a cold case, so to speak. It's a 20-year-old case. And then the detectives that investigate the case, they become really important. There are a lot of really interesting themes that Tana French explores here, about guilt and the person you think you are and you might not be, especially if you have problems remembering things due to trauma. The way you look at another person and think you know them and maybe you don't. And of course, how you change as a person. If you look back at your younger self, when you were a teenager or whatever, that you might think, I don't know this person, or maybe you do. So this theme, I always like it with Tana French, that she has, at least for me, a theme in mind. And on top of that, a good story, because a theme is not enough for a fiction book, a work of fiction. I will say I enjoyed it quite a bit. I think Terri did like it less, but it's up to her if she wants to make a video. It is very dark and destructive. There is not, crime fiction is always exploring the dark side of humanity because it's about a crime and a lot of times about murder. But still, crime fiction can make us feel, and I'm not talking about cozy mysteries, but crime fiction in general can also make us feel okay at the end, because, the bad guys are caught, and this book has so much darkness and destruction in it, it's not a feel-good ending at all. So beware of that. I know that a lot of people it was not their favorite Tana French, this one. And I think that the Dublin Murder Squad series is more your typical police procedural and meets expectations, whereas I feel that in her standalone books, Tana French explores more what can be done with the genre, and that sometimes suits you as a reader and sometimes it doesn't. So this was certainly, it was not, I would say, one of my favorites, but I definitely enjoyed it. The next book I finished was also, like I said, all of them were buddy reads. And that was a buddy read with Kim from Middle of the Book March. And we read Mary Costello's book, Academy Street, published in 2014, I believe. Yes, 2014. And this is also one in a series, not the book, but Kim and I trying to read Irish fiction by women, or not necessarily only fiction, but Irish works by women. So obviously Mary Costello is an Irish author. So this book follows, it's quite a tiny book, just 175 pages in this edition, and it still spans a whole life of one woman, 60 years. That means it's not detailed. So that is one thing that you might not enjoy, or maybe you do, if you feel, like the 1,000-page tome about a life is just too much. But anyway, we followed Tess, who is born in Ireland around the end of the Second World War, into a family of farmers, and right in the beginning of the book, her mom died. So that's the opening of the book. And then we follow her life, first in Ireland until she's a teenager, she becomes a nurse, and then she moves to the US. That might be a little bit of a spoiler, but it's on the blurb. And then we will, her love life, her work, until she is in her mid-60s, something like that. So, the beginning of the 21st century. When I talked to Kim about it, for me, this type of book where you have this narrator's voice telling you the story of another person. There's very little dialogue. It's almost like an essay written, to give you an expose of someone's life. And sometimes that works for me really, really well. Carol Shields, The Stone Diaries, same type of book. A whole woman's life, a little bigger than this one, but still this kind of detached narrator's voice giving you, a life. I recently read for Kim's book club, Jhumpa Lahiri's The Namesake. Same thing, the life of a man this time, told from a detached narrator's point of view. And like I said, sometimes that works perfectly and sometimes it's just not so much. And this was somewhere in between. I did like the writing style. For me, it had a really nice flow, but there were a couple of things that didn't quite fit with me. For instance, the beginning part when Tess is about 7 has a different style, a different voice, and is quite long compared to the rest of the book, the 60 years that follow. I didn't feel that those two things fit well together. And sometimes the voice, it's an ordinary life. There is nothing really spectacular happening. She has definite heartache and heartbreak and horrible events, so to speak, people die and things like that, but it's just a very ordinary life. And that approach to tell me an ordinary life and make it not interesting, that's not the right word I'm looking for, but make it that I feel engaged. I definitely like that, but it was not 100% success for me, but I still enjoyed reading it, and it's it was not a huge commitment, of course. So yeah, have a look whether the style, if you are interested in it, from the sound of what I told you, maybe have a Kindle sample and have a look at the style, whether you like it and whether this might appeal to you. And then the third book I finished was a reread for me and another buddy read, this time with Adam from Memento Mori, who actually was on YouTube recently in a live stream with Stephanie from Time to Read, because they always every year do the mid-year book freakout tag, however the tag is called. I always mix up the words. I will leave a link to it down below. So if you miss Adam, and if you like Stephanie, and who doesn't, there was a live stream yesterday, I think, or day before yesterday. Anyway, so Adam and I are making our way through Le Guin's work. We take it slow. It's not that we read one Le Guin after the other. We read other books in between. But the series that we started now is the Earthsea Cycle, a fantasy series of Le Guin she started in the 1960s, geared towards mainly young adult readers. And the first one is this, a Wizard of Earthsea, published in 1968. I read this 6 years ago, didn't much care for it, because I'm not a huge fantasy reader. You know that if you follow my channel. I'm just not. I never read Tolkien. Yes, there are people who never read Tolkien. I started it. It was not for me as a kid or a young reader. Never read The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, not for me. R.R. Martin, not for me. It's just not my thing. I never read fairy tales when I was a child either. I didn't like it. So anyway, and at that time, between 2016 when I read it and now, I did read more fantasy. I was trying to find the type of fantasy I might like, tried out things, so I'm more familiar now with the genre. So when I reread it, I liked it better than I liked it the first time, and I think that's also due to that I know more what to expect from a quite typical fantasy book. And this is, in a way, a quite typical fantasy book. We follow a main character, the wizard Sparrowhawk, and his real name is Ged or Jed. When he was young, a boy, starting to go to wizard school. Yes, there were wizard schools before Harry Potter. And then you have this hero's journey. And in that sense, this is a very typical book of the hero's journey of a young wizard coming into being a wizard. But it's Le Guin, so it's not that typical. I can't really... I could tell you what in the plot is not typical, but that would spoil you. But yeah. And Le Guin's writing is fabulous. She really is able with her writing to draw me right into this world. And she's also able, look at the size of the book, also just under 200 pages. She is able to build a world with magic that makes sense, and I know how the world looks, and I know how it works, and she doesn't need like 100 pages of exposition, which I hate in fantasy. But I have to say at the end, it's certainly not my favorite Le Guin. It's too typical for me, predictable in a way in fantasy. And I know Adam, when we talked about it, he said, yeah, well, genre fiction needs to be predictable because it has to follow rules. And he's right. But still, maybe it's the hero's journey that is just not so appealing to me, because I knew in the beginning when he was starting as a young boy and it was found out that he had magic powers, and I already knew, oh, I know which way this is going. He has an encounter with another boy, and this boy challenges him, and he is going to go, explore the dark side. And then I think for me, as a very much plot-loving reader, the predictability is always an issue. And if a crime fiction, for instance, if I know after 10 pages who did it, I'm not interested. But I will say I do want to carry on with the series, and not only because I'm committed to our, journey together to read Le Guin, but I'm more interested. Last time I thought, no, I don't want it. But this time I'm really, I like the character of the main character, the Jed, and I want to know what he does later on. So yeah, we'll see. We will probably read the next one, The Tombs of Atuan, end of this month. So we'll see how we go, because it's 5 books or something in this cycle. So yeah, we'll see. Anyway, those were the books that I finished. The books that I'm currently reading is still Annalie Newitt's The Terraformers. I'm reading this, also a buddy read. Yes, I still need those very much, with Heidi from my reading life. It's a sci-fi book about set in the year 50,000. And we encounter terraformers, so new planets, and the people who live there, and they are part human, some are not sapiens, Homo sapiens, and it's told in 3 novellas, and we just finished the second one, so I will hold off what I feel about the book after I've finished it, because I'm a bit doubtful after the second part, but that's often the case. The middle sometimes is dragging, you know how that works. So I will tell you more when I finish it. I finish it by the end of the week, so probably next Recent Reads I will have finished it. And then I'm reading also a non-fiction book with Kathleen, from Kathleen Ann, and that is Lucy Crook Bitch. This was a present a year ago from Heidi, from my reading life, but I waited to read it because it was also the June pick of Heidi's and Doris's book club, the Book Naturalist book club. And then, of course, I didn't read it in June. That's what you get. But I'm reading it now in July, and it is about what it says on the cover, the female of the species. So Lucy Crook explores, she's a science writer, she is a National Geographic explorer. So she looks at the science of being male-female. And she explores the chromosomal thing, but also the image we have of females. For instance, I just read a chapter about the female being monogamous. That's how we look at females, that they are monogamous, and the males are the promiscuous ones of our 2 sexes, because, we are passive. We have this big egg sitting around waiting, whereas men have this very virile and exploratory sperms, and they want to go, those myths. And it's fascinating. I'm about halfway, and what I can tell you is that nature, because she doesn't look at human beings as much also, but mainly also at other animals. And nature is just not as clear-cut or binary or simplistic as we made our gender rules to be. And that is absolutely fascinating to me. So those were the 3 books I finished and the 2 that I'm working on. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. As always, I'm really interested in your comments, and I'm all caught up. And I will talk to you all soon in the next one.